Okay, so here we go. I'm going to read from the paperwork. I've written it down, and basically, it's explaining that everything we say is a contract. We're using debt to speak. There is no L-O-R-E. L is a shepherd, O is the I, R is man, and E is the energy of man. You're going to look up the Kemetic alphabet. I'll do a clip on that later. So there is no law. There's only law. As there is only debt speak. Each and every time, each and every word is maritime by way of origin. Commerce is to bind by way of merchant law. Law, L is a shepherd, A is the alpha, and W is water. Maritime. Common law, case law, is federal lex mercatoria. See Clearfield Trust Company v. the United States, Chapter 4. First thing it says is, although the federal lex mercatoria. They incorporated your name. Legal comes from leg, and leg is a journey from point A to point B on a ship. Legal tender, a tender is a ship's small boat. So legal tender is point A to point B on a boat. And so an affidavit, a davit, is a crane on a ship that loads a tender. Right, so an affidavit, half of the word affidavit, is a tender. So they're using the mechanisms of a ship as the mechanisms of a court, because it's a slave trading court. The word court comes from atrium, which is in Lloyd's of London, hanging up, and atri, the root of atrium in Latin, means a dark slave trading house connected to the underworld. Now, I used to use Lexilogos, a Latin English translator, and I used to use the Notre Dame dictionary. It's been removed since I put a clip up. I'm not saying it was me, but it's gone, so you won't find that definition anywhere. Or you will maybe in a Lexilogos, in a Notre Dame Latin dictionary, but obviously you've got to find one. So a legal tender, an affidavit, a davit is the half of the word affidavit, and it means a crane that loads a tender onto a ship. The system is all based on maritime passage of energy, which is commerce. Mer is the sea. Immerse, submerse. So below the mer is below the waterline. Submerse. Liquidity, currency, controversy. Con is no, tra is travel, ver is to speak, and see. So if you prevent them from speaking, if you prevent their commerce, it's a controversy in the court. It's all based on, so like I said, it's liquidity, currency, controversy, cash flow, banks of the river, the flow of the river between the banks on a river, basically. So then they come up with the word driver. Driver is river. D-R-I-V-E-R. D in the is an alphabetical representation of a dalet, which is a portal, and this is a porthole, this is a porthole, this is a porthole, that's a porthole, and that's a porthole. Right, it's a passageway. And so the word porthole or port, D is a port, and driver is a combination of port and river. River. They changed the phonetics. So driver is a port on a river. Traffic, TRA, is a body, travel, traffic. So TRA, travel, trail. So TRA is a body. Traffic is, I've lost it. Where is it? Traffic is commerce, and is lex mercatoria, federal law. So federal law is called federal lex mercatoria, mercantile. License is the granting of a liberty from a ship, called getting liberty. Vehicle comes from vehire, meaning to carry. The VIN number on the car, or the VIN plate, is a vehicle numbering system called, and it's a vehicle numbered security called a special purpose vehicle. They take the manufacturer's certificate of origin illegally, because when you buy a product, you have to get the manufacturer's certificate of origin. They take the manufacturer's certificate of origin, put it into a folder, and then they put that into a trust, and they sell the trust. They trade at its value. Same as the subprime market. They take the mortgages, they put them into a folder, they put it in a trust, and then they sell the trust based on the, sell the financial instrument that holds the instruments based on its value. Right, so that's called a special purpose vehicle. A vehicle is a vessel of the United States. See US code. Random comes from randere, meaning to gallop, Old French. So random breath testing is them speeding up the process of militarization of the state. Civilization is militarization, as military law is conferred by two types, that which is conferred by statute and that which is conferred by the common law of war. Therefore, if you go to war with someone, if you harm someone, you've gone to war with them. And statute is saying you're in debt, so you're going to war with the creditor. You haven't discharged the debt. So the statute comes from the King's Statutory Book, and when they pass a bill, a bill is a debt. So they're saying you owe them because you're using their money. You're using their debt speak. You identify as the surety. So you pass the bill, and then it gets passed, it becomes an act, and then when it gets the certificate of proclamation, it gets the assent from the Governor General by way of the Queen's authority. It becomes a statute, and it goes into the statutory book of the King. Now, there are no statutes in New South Wales. They call them acts because they're not proclamated. It says locus sigliae, which means location of seal. Then they use Queen of Australia, where that's not Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, as it says Northern Ireland, Wales, and other territories. That's the correct title. So they have no proclamated or assented to acts in New South Wales. Australia Acts, creating the Queen of Australia, all that garbage, it's void. It's all colour of law, which is based on fiction. So random means to gallop, so they're speeding up the process of militarisation of the people. Identify comes from facere, meaning to make. Routed in face, because if you take the RE off facere, you get face, and face means mask. And when they ask you for identification, they're asking you for the face mask, which is the persona, the all capitals estate. They incorporated your name when they got you to sign for a license. License is a contract. It's got nothing to do with travelling. Right, birth is BERTH, is a stillbirth, is born alive, if you check the definitions in Black's Law. Now, live is the living, moral is good, amoral is bad, and alive is dead. Now, it's not me saying it. If you go to born alive is a birth, and if you look up birth, then it says see stillbirth. You go to Family Law Court Act 1975, Family Law Court Act 1975, number 4 definitions. It says, scroll down to birth, it says birth includes stillbirth. That's the exclusio maxim in law, and that means that birth means dead, and that's what the trust is. It's an all capitalised dead entity. It's an estate. Basically someone's died, and it becomes an inheritable or a hereditament, and corporal or incorporeal, and someone has to claim it, and that's what effectively is going on. So effectively, A in front of a word, I'll cover this in a sec, but A in front of a word makes it the negative state. So moral, amoral is not moral. Alive is not live. Alive is a birth. Alive is a birth which includes stillborn. Inclusio, exclusio. So just go through that. That's page number 1. A child is a child is a person and is a product of a birth. Birth includes stillbirth, and so CH is pronounced K, because the majority of the use of the word CH isn't child. People don't say the word child every day, but a lot of people think and say the word Christ. CH is K. So child is really killed, and it fits in with the narrative. It fits in with the phonetic meaning. So CH pronounced K, and child is phonetically killed. That's why all the language of the court is dead. They've got antecedents. Anti means no, seed is life, ANC is a condition of state of the mind. So they have defendant, they have executor, executor. They execute someone, to carry out. They tell you you are dead. You is plural and not singular. You is a sheep. You wondered, I wrote EWE. You wondered why they call you a sheep, because you is a sheep. Because you, and they address the estate in all caps, and every word after that is made and directed to you. So what happens is they write the estate name, and then under that it's addressed to you. You is the surety, you is the debtor, and if you go to New South Wales Coat of Arms, there's a picture, and zoom in, there's a picture of a sheep in a sling, and that is chattel, that's property, that's been landed. Where am I? U is the signer, S-I-G-N-E-R, and G is silent before the N. I've got it written down here now. And is the signer is the sinner, as the G before the N used in Latin is silent. When signing, you become the surety and the debtor. The pagan pay again. As Christ died on the cross, Christ, Yeshua, died on the cross and forgave all debts. Yeshua dying on the cross created the ledger. Left side, right side, as I'm looking at it. Now, the left side was the bad thief, and he didn't ask for forgiveness. He said, "Where's your God now?" And the crow pecked his eyes out, as the story goes. And then the right side is, "Forgive me, Master, for I've sinned." And he said, "You'll be remembered in the afterlife." Left side is the debtor, right side is the creditor. You was birthed through the waters, named and baptized and christened. Maritime. Yeshua walked on water in the sea. He never drowned. Moses means out of the sea. Monarchy means one ship, because the Ark of the Covenant is the ship of the covenant. And the covenant is a contract in law. It's the highest form of contract. So Ark of the Covenant is the ship's contract. And what's that? That's Genesis, the Bible. Bereshit, British. That's where the word British comes from. Sea of mankind. So walked on the sea. The sea is mankind. Pharaoh's captains were drowned in the sea. Drown is the English word for drunk. Now comes the proof. Right, so Pharaoh's captains didn't drown in the sea, as we are told the word in an English dictionary. If you go to the original meaning of the word when the Bible was written, so the original meaning when it was written and the original meaning of the word when it was written, drown means I've had too much to drink. It's so simple. Now comes the proof. Jurisdiction. Juris comes from jus, comes from ius. Now this is the root of the word, which means to bind. When you look up Latin, you look up the root of the word. When you look up English, you look up the root of the word. I had a linguist on a Zoom chat the other night try and tell me that words don't originate from prefixes, suffixes, and roots in English. I said, "You're full of shit. I'm not going to prove it." And I did prove it. And then at the end he said, "Oh, you're 95% right." And then he used the word grundive. Grundive is a position between a verb and an adjective. And what I'm saying, the mechanism and how I'm saying it, it goes against the use of the application of the mechanism grundive. So then I looked up grundive because I'd never heard it before, and it said when used in Latin, origins in Latin, when used in Latin, is used to describe a position between a verb and an adjective. So he's using grundive and saying it's how the English mechanism works, and I just went to him because he was a handler, he was a shill. So what I'm trying to say is English is Latin because it uses the Latin dictionary, it uses the rules of Latin, but it's been inverted, and I'll explain that in a sec. So jurisdiction, juris comes from eos, jus comes from eos, no, Jesus comes from Isus, so the I became the J, or it became another way of printing the letter I. So you can distinguish between an I and an L in lowercase, which means to bind. English, E-N is Lord, G is the return, L is the shepherd, and Ish is the people. I just thought I'd throw that in there. Debt speak. So basically they're using English as debt speak, and that is why the Germanics working for Rome, the foederati, so the contract killers to supply soldiers and gold to Rome for Rome's interest only, were the foederati, invaded Britain and changed the speech from Phoenician Gaelic to Anglo-Saxonic speech to get joined up by way of binding speak. Own comes from owe. That's why Rothschild says never own, always control. So if you say you're the owner, it means you owe a tithing to someone. If you say you're the owner, you owe a tax to someone. If you say you're the owner, you owe a debt to someone. So that's why you don't want to be the owner. You want to control it. Crime comes from crimen, which means charge. So criminal charges is a charge. They want money from your estate. That's why they need the name for their invoice. That's all it is. It's a fucking invoice. The solicitor offers you a discount for pleading early. Discount, charge, bill. It's commerce. It's not law. It's admiralty maritime contracts. So it's basically perform and get paid, and failure to perform, you get charged. So where's my fucking payment? Where's the payment? Where's my fee? I'm not getting paid. So the solicitor offers a discount for pleading early. He doesn't represent you. He represents the court. Like that, if you look that up, you'll actually find that solicitors represent the court. And I found this out heaps. Now, court comes from atrium in Latin, and atri, the root meaning, is a dark slave trading house connected to the underworld. That's why they summon you as the debtor, the dead, because they're summoning the dead. It's necromancy. Now, you won't find that definition. I used to get it on Lexi Logos and click on the Notre Dame definition, which was the old one and the good one. But they've removed Notre Dame from Lexi Logos. I put up my YouTube clips before the channel got taken down. And but I won't forget it. Okay, so it's necromancy. Can't read my own writing. Far out. Ab, re, d, anti, ac, ir, a, ob, dis, con, mal, mis. Almost all prefixes are negative states or conditions. Income, indecent, incompetent, aboriginal, indigenous, vernacularis. Now I'll expand on this. I had a friend, I told him about aboriginal and indigenous. Ab-original, not original. Indigenous, in is no, di is of, and genus, not of the genus of man. He went and looked it up in an unabridged Latin dictionary, printed in 1950, and I believe it was a Collins dictionary, and I won't say where, but he went to his local library, and he looked up Aboriginal, and straight away it said see indigenous. So the first word is the most powerful descriptor, the second word is less powerful or less accurate, and the third then starts to go off into industries and other areas. So the first word was for Aboriginal was see indigenous. Then he went to indigenous. Then it said see vernacularis. Then he went to vernacularis, and it said tongue of the slave born to the house. So an Aboriginal is someone who holds the tongue of the slave born to the house. That backs up debt speak theory. It's not theory, it's a fact. It's not a fact, it's the truth, because a fact is an agreed upon point, which can be wrong. This is the truth. Okay, so we've covered Aboriginal, Indigenous, and Vernacularis. Not of the genus of man, Vernacularis, tongue of the slave born to the house. And what house were you born under? You were born under the Masonic Lodge, New South Wales, because the Masonic Lodge's coat of arms is very similar to the New South Wales coat of arms. And it has the sheep been landed, and it has the wheat been bound. So, can't read my own writing, damn it. Traditio, okay, and traditio, sorry. Traditio is one who's traded his rights. So when they say traditional owners, owner means taxed entity. Indigenous, you know what indigenous and vernacularis means now. So it's a Latin root of vernacular. All right, so consent, contract, obligation. I'm sentient. Consent means no scent. Contract, TRA is a body, track, trail, travel. You can only travel on a track, it's a body. Contract, so no body act is a contract. Obligation, LIG is the root of ligament, which means to bind. So ob is no, obtuse means cannot be taught. So obligation means no contract. Interest means no earth established, because ter is earth. Ter is earth in another language. Okay, so alien. So you've got a lean and an alien. Alien. Doll. Doll is the root of dollar, and actually DOLAR means a dollar is a bill. Dollar is said to be a weight of gold, but a bill is a debt. But dollar, DOLOR, the root of dollar, and DOL is the root of dollar, means pain, anguish, sorrow. It's all negative state incurring a debt or the status of surety. Registration, register, regis means king, and ter is earth. King of earth. Sheriff means moral high voice of the king, and hence the registry. RY is the business of. And so when you look at King and Black's law, it says Chief Executive Magistrate of any state or territory. So we have a king in New South Wales, and usually that'll be the Chief Mason. Not saying it always is, but I can't imagine them being the Chief Executive Magistrate and not being the Master Mason of a lodge. Discharge the debt. Dis means no charge, so discharge the debt. They teach numeracy, counting, so you taught how to count, COUNT. But when they go to university, they learn accounting, a negative state. Remember, the prefixes are negative. Most of the prefixes are negative, except for pro and pri means first. So it involves accounting is a negative state and involves debt accumulation. Think of the X and Y axis. This is the positive vertical. This is the positive horizontal. And when you go to the left of the axis, that's the negative, the debt side. So when you look at the ledger, the Christ, the marked Messiah, Christos, mark, Messiah, the anointed, right? So you anoint something before you slaughter it, right? So the mathematical X and Y axis, the left side is the debt, right? So that's where they write your name on the left side. It's a negative state. So mathematically, the X and Y axis matches up. Grammatically, it matches up. Linguistically, it lines up as well. So X and Y axis explains the negative side of being in the red. So on the left side, it's -1, -2. On the right side, it's 2 or 1 on the chart. More negative states and are resources. They're not resources, they are minerals. At least that's what they call them when I was a miner. Not young, Y-O-U, get it? More negative states are common law. Vulgar law. Commonwealth is vulgar wealth. Common from the Greek koinos, K-O-I-N-O-S, I can't pronounce it, koinos, meaning a desecration of what God created. Scripture says, call nothing that God has made clean common. Latin means vulgar. In Latin, common means vulgar. In keeping with Scripture, taxpayer and publican, again, it's debt speak. So I'll explain taxpayer and publican because I didn't write it down. I just made reference to it. So in the KJV 16:11, you'll have to just Google this. I can't remember the actual chapter and verse name, but it says, and the Pharisees far as house, Ra is the sun, and sees the Egyptians. So when the Egyptians said to the disciple, why does your master sit with tax collectors and sinners? Right. So to come forward to 1973, NIV owned by Rupert Murdoch, I've been led to believe. I haven't confirmed it. It says, and why does your and the Pharisee said, and the Egyptian said to the disciple, why does your master sit with publicans and tax collectors? So the publican collects the tax from the public, so therefore the publican is a tax collector, and public is the root of publican, so that means the public is a taxpayer. So a taxpayer is a sinner because they're not discharging their debt, because if they discharge their debt, they wouldn't have to pay a tax and pay again. Pagan, get it? Old English is English, and English today is New English. We are looking at it backwards. Technically, it is all trans English as they keep changing it. Now, in Hebrew, your future is behind you and your past is in front of you, because you can see your past and you can't see your future. Well, I can now, but because I'm looking in the camera, I can see behind me. So it's all about perspective. Once you get it, once you comprehend perspective, once you can grasp the gravity of, or the mass of what I'm saying, the matter, then you can comprehend and correspond with whoever. I haven't done any of this paperwork yet because I'm still learning. I know enough now to do stuff, but I'm still learning. And there's people who know more than me, but they follow the rules of the fiction. Now, you're wondering why a magistrate and judge calls themselves honourable. Right? They call themselves honourable when corresponding by writing. One would reply by the use of the words Can't read my own writing. Damn it. Well, wishing to remain in honour. Sorry, I had to squeeze it in between the words. Wishing to remain in honour. So when you're writing to a bank, you say, I wish to remain in honour and not default on the loan. And you can say the account is in dispute if you believe there's a mistake, or you can say the account is in dispute. I'm happy to settle the debt on proof of claim. Debt validation, it's called. And they have to operate under the GAAP, the Generally Accepted Accounting Practices. You can YouTube that and look it up and Google it. They have to operate under the Basel 1, 2, and 3 Accords. Some good videos, you can look that up as well. And basically control of banking. And then they have to operate under UNICITRAL, which is conventions in debt disputes and resolution that most of these Uniform Civil Procedure Codes now adhere to prevent banks from folding. Because when one bank folded, they all folded because they're all tied to each other. Sort of like getting the black slave, chaining him up to the one behind, and push one over the edge, and they all fall in, chasing the anchor, which is what they used to do and claim the insurance, which is what they're doing to us effectively. They're pushing us off the ship early and claiming the insurance. That's why they're knocking off all. That's why they set up these old aged care pensioners. Go and get your family, big Greek family, big Irish family, buy a fucking house and stick your elders in that fucking house in the same street if you have to, buy in a new estate, and then pay a doctor to make visits once a day if you have to, $150 an hour. Right? It's cheaper than a fucking a home, and then get a carer in, or get a carer to live in the house, or build a big house. Do it yourself. Don't rely on these bastards because they all fucking juice them. There's a doctor on Facebook and YouTube, and he's basically saying that they've got midazolam and morphine. They had 3 years of midazolam in storage based on usage over a year. In the outbreak, in 3 months they used 3 years worth of midazolam. Midazolam is an end-of-life drug, and morphine will suppress the fuck out of you. Combine the two, they're knocking people off. A mate of mine's father was in a bad way. They said, we can't give him a lethal dose because he's dying, so we can give him 4 doses, and that'll push him over the edge. This is what the kids are getting taught in school, in university. And so he said, no, take him off all the fucking pills, just give him the morphine. The guy come good, and he's been living now for another 3 years and thanks his son every day. They're murdering people. They're fucking murdering people to get the estate. And they call themselves honourable. Now, the reason why they're doing it is because we're waking up. I'm not awake. A means no wake. I'm woke. Okay, so they call themselves honourable, right? And they wish to remain in honour. Not default on the debt. Money owed as who owns the debt, right? Who owns the debt must pay. People are fighting for their land. Land is estate, and estate inland, and tenements and hereditaments. And tenement is the buildings, the houses in a vulgar sense. That's the word it uses in a common sense. Hereditaments is what can be inherited, corporal and incorporeal. So corporal is a body real, core is a body and real, and incorporeal is not real, like a title, like Lord. So land is the buildings and the structures, and I also looked up earth and the soil, the trees, the clay and the water, but not the ground. Right? The ground is the solid rock. Earth is the gravel, clay, the water, but not, okay, it is the gravel and the clay, excuse me line, but not the firm rock. And that's Dixon v. Plough in New York. So there's case law to show that basically only the movable property on the surface of the planet is the ground. Everything above the ground is movable, is classified as earth. And technically that's soil. You put some earth down to grow your plants. You don't put clay down, even though clay is not earth, technically not earth. You can't grow plants in clay. It's too dense. Only tree roots can survive in clay. Too many nutrients. Anyway, did God create the earth in 7 days? The 4 corners of the earth, or is that the allegory for 4 corners of the earth? Now, Stephen Spears explains, he reads out Genesis, and as he's reading out Genesis, he's drawing the page, he's drawing the header, he's drawing the base, he's drawing lines on the page. He's drawn the words. Genesis. Steve, he's a Freemason, and he writes out and he draws basically a page by reading out Genesis. And I've lost the clip. It's not on YouTube anymore, and I didn't get a chance to save it. And it's one of the best clips I've ever seen because it just confirmed everything that I've thought. Anyway, so get back to this. So if God created the earth, why does the earth only exist in English? So have a think about this. I'll read out the names of the earth in other languages. So Brazil, it's Terra. In Croat, it's Zemlja. In Czech, it's Zemi, Zeme. In Danish, it's Jord. In Dutch, it's Aarde. In Frog, it's Terre, or French. In Spanish, or Spanish in the old form of the word means Jew. Terre. Erede is German. Yin is Greek, and Glebe is Polish, and Eretes is Hebrew. It's funny that the word Glebe is almost identical to the word globe in Polish. Pol means God, by the way. So Earth is not the bedrock, just everything attached that can be moved or controlled by interest or contract, because that's what the Bible is. It's a contract. You read it. If you believe in it, you accept it, and you're bound by its rules. In and con, I can't read it. Okay, so yeah, so in and con, so the two negative states, right? So federate and confederate. Con is the antithesis of a thing. I've written this, and when I see the word, I want to read out what I've got in my head, but I've already written it down, so I'm having a double take. So federate and confederate. That's why the Swiss states are confederates. They're not in debt. And that's where all the bloodlines live. The Davosians, the Davitians, the boat people. So Davit and Davos, Dav is the root, so it means it's a ship. So confederate and is the antithesis of a thing. So so con is confederate, federate. So one is a debtor and one's not a debtor. Contract, nobody. So contract, con is no, TRA is track, it's travel, is the root of those things. And act, so contract is a nobody act. Interest is no ter est, no earth established. So it's alien. And why do they call an alien alien? Because he's from another jurisdiction. I've already written this in here, so I'm going to cover it. So the alien is outside of jurisdiction, as it is different debt speak language and not lienable. If ye believe ye live in Australia, one has to ask themselves, do they live on the Torres Strait Island, Norfolk Island, Cocos, Keeling Islands, as the jurisdiction of all courts, federal, family court, high court, Supreme Court, district court, local court, are all within the Australian territorial limits. See Family Law Court Act 1975, definitions, number 4, and you can see the definition of Australia includes Norfolk Island, inclusio, exclusio, maxim applies. Then you go down to birth, and it says includes stillbirth. So that backs up everything I've said so far. So the inclusio, exclusio, maxim, birth is a stillbirth, and then conforms to born alive, which is a birth, which means alive means dead. Then you go to the Acts Interpretation Act 1900 under Section 2B, I believe. I think it's Acts Interpretation Act 1900 2B from memory. And that is interpretations. So go down to interpretations or definitions, whichever that one is. I'm pretty sure it's interpretations, 2B. And it'll scroll down to Australia, and it'll say Australia is defined as Cocos, Keeling Islands, Torres Strait Island, Norfolk Island, and no other external territory. Now I'm going to read you something else, and then I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to have to put the glasses on for this one, because it's a bit hard to read under this light. It's very low light. And these things make everything very big. Governments descend to the level of mere corporations and take on the characteristics of a mere citizen when private, corporate, commercial paper, Federal Reserve notes, and securities checks are concerned. For the purposes of suit, such corporations and individuals are regarded as entities entirely separate from government. This is Clearfield Trust Company v. the United States, 318 US 363 371, back in 1942. What the Clearfield Doctrine is saying is that when a private commercial paper is used by a corporate government, then the government loses its sovereignty, jurisdiction, status, and becomes no different than a mere private corporation. As such, government then becomes bound by the rules and laws that govern private corporations, which means that if they tend to compel an individual to some specific performance based upon its corporate statutes or corporate rules, then the government, like any private corporation, must be holder in due course of a contract other than a commercial agreement, and holder of a commercial agreement between it and the one upon whom demands for a specific performance are made. Yeah. So they must hold a contract and for be able to demand performance. And the performance is the bill, is the act, is the statute. And further, the government must be willing to enter the contract or commercial agreement into evidence before trying to get the court to enforce its demands, called statutes. So I apologise, it's a bit hard, these glasses aren't quite perfect for me. But essentially what's going on is that the electoral roll, the licence, is not a contract. There's no informed consent. There's no meeting of the minds. Now, federal case law, I've got a document that says no, meeting of the minds is no longer required. He who knows he's been, they have these maxims, and well, a lot of maxims do make sense. A lot of them are very hard. A lot of them are not the easiest to comprehend. But they've got one maxim that says, "He that knows he's being deceived is not deceived." Right. So she that knows she's been raped has not been raped. That's how fucking stupid these fucking maxims are. They really are nonsense. Now, the court operates on something called fictio. Fictio is the fiction created by the court to get jurisdiction over the foreigner. So a man would come in from outside of Rome, be inside Rome, gets ripped off by the locals. Then he goes to the court, and the court says, "I don't have jurisdiction." So they created the merchant law. I don't have jurisdiction. You speak in a different tongue. We don't have a common binding. We don't have debt speak. Yeah. So then what they would do is they would create a fiction and go, "Put on this cap, put on this mask." Well, you put the mask on. I recognise you now. I've got jurisdiction over that mask, the name. So a name is what's given to a corporation. An appellation was what's given to the living man. So when Eve was in the Bible, was talking to the snake, and snakes are the ones who make you strong and magnificent. I can't think of any other word. I can't say it is a healer, because when I heal something, I put a chain around its neck and I say heal. I can't say it makes you well, because when you say make me well, well is a low point. I'm at the bottom of a well. So well is not mean, I can't even say healthy. So health means to heal, H-E-A-L, thee. So T-H is you, I love thee. That's the way we used to say it in English. And in not English, this is New English. This is debt speak. And it's basically, they've got us speaking spells on ourselves. Now, I don't use the word spells magic, but that's what it is. Because the magistrate, there's a book called, I printed it out, Ars Notoria. Now, Ars Notoria is a book for travellers, merchants, and seamen, I think it was, from memory. Ars Notoria. I had it here somewhere anyway. I thought I printed it out. So Ars Notoria is for the I had it in my head. Anyway, I'll let it go, otherwise the clip's going to drag out too long. But I'll mention Ars Notoria, and it gives you the examples of what it is. It's the magistrate science, it's commerce, it's art of memory, and a few other things. And it's funny that the word me and mori, more is death, my death. Memory means my death. Memento, me, meant. Government, control the mind. Me meant is my mind. Me mori is my death. They've got to speak it in spells. Now this linguist went, he just kept, oh no, you're wrong, Joe. No, you're misrepresenting, you're misinterpreting. You're reading too much into it. You can't read too much into something that you're reading. It's literal. It's a literal translation. It's literary. And he was saying it's away from. How can you have away from possible? If possible's over there and I'm away from it, it means I'm not possible because possible's over there. It's idiot speak. And so this guy goes, "Oh, I'm a linguist. I'm noted for being a good linguist." And I said, "Well, I've got notaries telling me I'm one of only 3 people in the country who gets what he's trying to say." That's a compliment. But anyway, so this guy went on to just passively call me an idiot. You're an idiot. You're an idiot. And effectively, I backed up everything. Then I closed him down with the grundiv being in Latin, and he's using the Latin mechanism in the English. He just proved my point. And then I closed with, you're doing such a good job that in 1988, when I used to watch Beyond 2000 and all the science programs, we were 4th or 5th in the world for English, maths and science. And since the Israel and the corporations have taken over, we're now 25 to 27 in the world in maths, science and English. The Japanese are better at maths, science and English than we are, and we invented it. We perfected the modern era of the application on it because we led the world in science. I mean, in 1988, the Chinese were asking town planners to design a city for them. So they designed a city for them, made a model, and shipped it off to China. And then they turned around and never call them back. And they just used that model to make a city. And because they didn't have the engineers there to show them and teach them, they spent 20 years fucking it up. Buildings falling down, bridges falling down. Oh, we don't need to listen. We're Chinese, using Western science and screwing it up. So they've destroyed, Liberal and Labor have destroyed Australia. Now, people call it Terra Australis. They call it all kinds of stuff. In Sanskrit, Australia is called Australalia. That's the best way I can pronounce it. It means land of missiles. Right? You watch an asteroid coming in at about 15 degrees. When it hits, it leaves a perfect round edge at the front leading edge and with the blast going out. And then the back edge in the direction of travel, it's all blown out. It's like that. Going that way. Blown out. But when you look at Wolf Creek, it's a perfect cone. Perfect dome. Perfect concave. So that means whatever hit it comes straight down. That backs up the Sumerian tablets version of Genesis and the planet. The gods come down, they want the gold. Mankind woke up, mankind fought the gods in the Book of Enoch, and then there was a great war, and they wiped out the Tartarian civilization, which was free energy. People think it was 2,000 years ago, but all I can say is that if you go back to the mud flood of 1812, and we had these fantastic structures all around the planet. Even in Australia, we had star forts. So the star forts were here with the blackfellas. And the blackfellas actually talk about star people up in Gosford in the carry-on glyphs. Bambara, the hieroglyphs of Bambara. So our language is designed to have us get bogged down. Languish over time, age. So that's an idea anyway. So English is debt speak. You is the debtor. I can't be you. When I spoke to the taxman, they said, don't you pay tax? And I said, well, taxation is slavery under usufruct, under international rules of war. Usufruct is actually a war term. So what they're doing is they're saying we're using their money. There is no money. There's only debt. Money is gold and silver only, or paper that is backed and redeemable for gold and silver. So by removing the money, they've enslaved us. And the only way we can discharge the debt is by using the birth certificate to discharge the debt. AAS 23, third page down, I think it is, there's a little paragraph there. It says the birth certificate is used to discharge public and private debt. And then AASB 1014, and it talks about debt extinguishment and debt defeasance. It's all based on fraud. It's all based on fiction, and it's all based on colour of law. We're not lost at sea. We're not on a fucking ship. And the word monarchy, people are going, oh, the monarchy. You're singing your own spell of enslavement. Mon is one, and ark is a ship. It's not that. It's that. They've inverted everything. Monarchy is a ship. Anarchy is no ship. Anyway, that's me done. The light's a bit low in here, so I look a bit dark. And that should give you an idea that when you go into court, most of the words that we use mean debt. Now, unfortunately, I've lost a great tool on LexiLogos Latin English Translator. When you type that into Google, I used to click on Notre Dame, and that gave me the best compilation of the meaning of the word, and they've removed it. I firmly believe they took it down because I was using it in my clips, but I can't be sure, so it's only speculation. All right, that's me done. I hope you enjoyed the clip. It's a bit long-winded. I might type this out and put it on the bottom of the posts at some stage, but I've written it out, and I've got a lot more. I've got heaps more. I've got so much more, it's not even funny. It's not funny. This is just the tip of the iceberg. That what I read in the Bible, now that I know roots, prefixes and suffixes, ask yourself why a lot of sentences in the Bible start with but. B-U-T. Then go and look up the meaning of the word but, and then click on the translation and expand it down. It means to buy. Buy, B-U, with the mark, yeah? And so when you go to Scripture and it says, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, etc., etc., thy kingdom come, thy kingdom will be done. Well, if you had a dictionary from the 1600s, you know that the word king in English law means corporation. Dom means freedom. All these idiots going around saying, I want my freedom. And yes, I've called my channel Free Man. Free has the word fee, and they put the man inside the fee. Fee man, free man. Right? Dominion means freedom. Dominion means no tax. That's why it's kingdom. It's not king free, it's king dominates. He who dominates is free. So thy kingdom come. Come is the mind. Oh, I've come to, I've come awake. Come is the mind. So income, only someone with no mind. In means no mind. Only someone who has no mind will pay income. Right? Only someone with no mind will pay income. Only someone who identifies as you. When the taxman said, aren't you a taxpayer? I said, I can't be. You don't call me you, I'm me. And they said, don't you want to pay tax? I said, why would I want to pay tax to an American bankruptcy organisation that is not a legal entity here in Australia? Molliker v. Chapman, 17th of May 2000, the High Court stated that it is a person without it is a ship without a legal personality. It is not a legal entity, and the argument can't be argued. It simply has no legal and lawful basis. The Deputy Tax Commissioner's got no legal and lawful basis. The ATO's got no legal and lawful basis. It wasn't proclamated. The High Court has stated that, and the ATO was used to create the New South Wales Police Force in its modern encapsulation, in its modern state. Now, the New South Wales Police Service used to be a quasi-legal entity. The New South Wales Police Force is not. The Constitution of the Commonwealth of Australia clearly states that no state may maintain a force. Right? So they're not operating under the Constitution in your courts. They're operating under a debt obligation. They're operating under trust law, and they're operating under commercial law. So when you go into court, you say to the prosecutor, who's bringing the claim? If there's no harm and no injury and no loss, injured man or woman, then you're here for profit and gain. And then if they're there under commerce, he who brings the claim must bring remedy. Now, whoever brings remedy must bring 4 times. I can't remember what it is. I wrote it down. I've saved it in my Hotmail. But whoever brings harm must bring remedy. Just type in. I think it's Luke 18:6 or Luke 16:8 or something like that. And it's basically I gave half my wage to the poor, and if I've harmed anyone and caused loss to anyone, let me pay them 4 times that in compensation. And then it says, and there's another one that says under Luke again, I think it is, and it says, restore the lamb fourfold. So they have to have an indemnity bond or a bid bond to insure them 4 times the claim. So when you go into court, they're going to have penalty points awarded to the charge because it's commercial. Charge is commercial. So the penalty points will have a number of penalties, and each penalty point in New South Wales, I think it's about $120 for penalty point, something like that. And therefore, whatever that amounts to, they have to have 4 times that amount that they're claiming. And you can have a counterclaim for loss of time, stress. Say you spent a month worrying about it, that's a trespass. Right? Someone tortures you, it's a torture, stress. Put in a counterclaim and do it to the ABN and do it to the chief financial officer of the entity that's claiming, and do it as a statement of truth or a testamentary statement. Don't do it as an affidavit because that's maritime. But I'm still struggling with this because if you do a testamentary statement or a statement of truth, then I think you can then come after them in commerce with an affidavit, with an unrebutted claim. So I'm just going over that now. So I'll have more about that later. Anyway, that's me done. I better sign off, otherwise this clip will be too long. 50 minutes, shit. All right, that's it. That's me done.